Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
First of all, let me inform you that I mentioned that in Ludhiana, the Maulvi Sahib was very much against, and he was speaking against Muslim, addressing a large gathering of not only common people but great ulama. He was a man of very high position among the ulama at that time. Maulvi Ghulam Nabi Sahib, Kushabi. And when he, along with the number of ulama who were supporting him, along with them in a sort of procession, he was, I'm sorry. He was coming to see his Muslims of Islam. This was not the occasion of the first bay'ah. This was the occasion of his debate with Maulvi Ghulam Nabi wala waqia hai?
Yes.
He was holding a debate in Ludhiana.
Yes.
With whom? Ghulam Nabi? Yeah. This is it, I'll tell you.
At this point, I think was not recorded.
No? No?
So get it?
No, but let me first inform you of the event. I thought I mentioned that Maulvi Ghulam Nabi Sahib conveyed the Islam of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to him during the first bay'ah.
Yes.
That's right. So I wanted to correct it.
Yes.
It was not during the first bay'ah, but soon after that. In the year 91, Hazrat Masih Maud had a debate with a Maulvi. I'll find out his name if I can.
After the promised Messiah claimed.
Of course. Yes. Some Maulvi, it was, I don't exactly remember, but we better find out.
Yes.
Tell the press secretary to find out which Maulvi it was with him he was engaged in a religious debate.
Yes.
In Ludhiana. In the same year, 91.
Yes, sir.
After he claimed to be the Messiah. Now, one ilham indicates that Allah told him to be the Messiah and the Mahdi together. This is the one which I mentioned in my address in Jalsa Salana. The words of that ilham first time when he mentioned himself to be the Mahdi was 1891. And it was in Fateh Islam and Tawzi Maram and Izala Aham in these three books.
Fateh Islam,
Izala Aham and Tawzi Maram. He made it clear that Mahdi and Masih are not two different people, they are one and the same thing. So his claim to be the Messiah was tantamount to his claim of Mahdiyyat. And this could not be otherwise, because all the Muslims believe that Mahdi should have appeared before the Messiah, and he is claiming to be the Messiah, although in a different manner, but where is the Mahdi? So he made it clear, and he used to quote that hadith, Lal Mahdiyu illa Isa, that if you are expecting two different persons having two different titles, forget about it. There is going to be only one. Masih would be that Mahdi which you are expecting. And the words वो कहाँ है वो इल्हाम के अल्फाज? नहीं जहाँ महदी की लफ्ज़ आता है मेरे पास, I got it. I left it this evening. I had it on my table. Majid Sahib ko diya tha maine. Majid Sahib has got it. So that ilham says that you are the Mahdi and you are al-Masih. Now, whether we can get this ilham during this period or not, this is not important. Again? The words are Innal Masih al Ma'ud al Lazi yarqubunahu wal Mahdi al Masih wal Mahdi al Masud al Lazi yantazirunahu huwa anta nafalu ma nasha'u fala takununna min al mumtareen. But हाँ ये था आई एम टॉकिंग दिस, मैं खुदा ताला के वादा के मुआफिक और उसके इल्हाम से मसीह मौद के नाम पर आया हूँ। इन्नी अनल महदीयुल लज़ी हुवल मसीहुल मुंतज़र बिल मौद. This is the one I was looking for. So not only his name was mentioned as al-Mahdi in his revelations, but right in 1891 he claimed to be the Masih Maud. In his books, he made it very clear that Masih Maud and Mahdi are not two different people, they are one and the same. That is the reason why the ulama started demanding from him to show the signs of the eclipse of the moon and the sun on the set dates. If he had not claimed and made it clear to the ulama that he is the same Mahdi, how could they claim? Because just the claim to be the Masih would not require him to show the signs of or require the signs to appear in his favor. So those signs are bound to the Mahdi. And the debate was raging in the Punjab, particularly in those days, that Masih Maud, being Masih Maud, is also the Mahdi according to his claim. So he must show the signs where they are. So this mention, I have shown it from the year in the books which I have just mentioned. The earliest we have is 1891, right? So when I said perhaps it was Mahdaviyat was before and Masihiyyat came after, I have not found any reference to that. But this is certain that they were simultaneous. They went together. And that is why this hadith was brought forth repeatedly during the discussion. Lal Mahdi wa illa Isa. Ibn Majah ki hadith. Yes. That there can't be any Mahdi but Isa. You understand? 81 Fatah Islam Tawzih Maram Azallah.
كنا بالأمس بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كنا بالأمس نتحدث عن سيرة الإمام المهدي والمسيح الموعود وابتداء إنشاء الجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية في عام 1889. تلقى حضرته البيعة من أتباعه ومريديه. كانت هذه البيعة على أساس أنه المأمور وأنه المجدد، وليس هناك أي دعوة أخرى. ولكن بعد ذلك في عام 1891 تلقى سيدنا الإمام المهدي الإلهام من الله سبحانه وتعالى أن المسيح ابن مريم الذي ينتظره الناس قد مات، وأنك أنت المسيح وأنك أنت الإمام المهدي. الوحي الذي تلقاه يقول إن المسيح الموعود الذي يرقبونه والمهدي المسعود الذي ينتظرونه هو أنت، نفعل ما نشاء فلا تكونن من الممترين. وبناء على ذلك أعلن حضرته وقال إنني أنا المهدي والمسيح المنتظر الموعود. هذا كان.
The dates of these ilhams have to be yet further investigated. So to bring the issue to a conclusion, I said these are the ilhams. Of course, they were before that sign appeared.
No.
But I'm not sure of their dates I'm investigating. As far as the definite dates we have discovered of his claim, they are found in 3 of his books. Now start with that, please.
يقول أمير المؤمنين إن التواريخ الدقيقة لهذه الإلهامات نحن نبحث عنها في المراجع، ولكن هناك في عام 1891 سيدنا الإمام المهدي صنف 3 كتب، هي فتح إسلام وإزالة أوهام وتوضيح مرام. في هذه الكتب ال3 أشار إلى هذا الموضوع، أي أنه في عام 1891 كان قد استقر وأعلن على الناس أنه هو الإمام المهدي وأنه هو المسيح الموعود، وليس هناك فاصل بين هذين، لأن الإمام المهدي مرتبط بالمسيح الموعود، لأن الإمام المهدي يكون في زمن المسيح الموعود والمسيح الموعود يكون في زمن الإمام المهدي، ولذلك هو أشار إلى أنه المسيح الموعود وأنه الإمام المهدي، واستند إلى حديث النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا المهدي إلا عيسى، وهو وارد في ابن ماجه. ويقول أمير المؤمنين أنه لا يمكن الفصل بين الأمرين، لأنه إذا أعلن أنه الإمام المهدي والمسيح الموعود فلا بد وأن يطالب بالآيات الدالة على أنه يجمع بين الاثنين، فاستخدم هذا الحديث، وقامت مجادلات ومناظرات كثيرة في المنطقة بسبب هذا الادعاء، وطالبوه بالآية السماوية التي في الأحاديث النبوية التي تربط بين الإمام المهدي وبين خسوف الشمس وخسوف القمر وكسوف الشمس، وطالبوه بأن يأتي بهذه الآية.
Another very important point which in fact clinches the issue and the debate comes to an end is the fact that if he had not claimed to be the Imam Mahdi together with Messiah, why did not a single alim of the time demand from him, if you are Masih Maud, all right, where is the Mahdi? Where has he gone? So the total absence of that objection against him positively proves that he had claimed. Number 2, when he if he had made only the claim to the Masihiyyat, why should the ulama have demanded for him to show the signs of the heavenly signs of the eclipse of sun and moon? So there is no shadow of doubt about it that he had made his claim clear. All the ulama understood it, and that is why the demand about the signs of the moon and the sun being eclipsed was made. Never the objection was raised that if you are the Messiah, where is the Mahdi?
يقول أمير المؤمنين أن هناك مسألة تحسم هذا الموضوع وتدل على أنه أعلن أنه المهدي والمسيح الموعود في زمن واحد وفي وقت واحد. لو أعلن أنه المسيح لسأله العلماء أين المهدي، ولم يحدث أن سأله أحد هذا السؤال. ولو ادعى أنه لو لم يدعي أنه المهدي ما سألوه أن يأتي بالآية السماوية عن خسوف الشمس والقمر. فهذا دليل حاسم على أنه أعلن أنه الإمام المهدي والمسيح الموعود في نفس الوقت. وأريد أن أذكركم بأن أمير المؤمنين أخبر أن كل الذين ادعوا بالمهدوية لم يعملوا بهذه الأحاديث التي تشير إلى الآيات السماوية، ولم يقولوا شيء عن مجيء المسيح الموعود، لأن الاثنين لابد أن يكونوا معا في وقت واحد وفي مكان واحد وفي زمن واحد.
Yes.
Now, حضور, we now know that the ulama opposed him after claiming that he is the Imam Mahdi and Masih Maw'ud. And as Imam Mahdi and the Masih Maw'ud, he is supposed to do many things.
Right.
In Arabic, he came يجدد الدين. What are the ideas of the ulama of that time? What are their beliefs and their thoughts at that time, which
He rectified.
Right. The first point is about the life of the Messiah and his descent from heavens, for instance.
Would you please put it in Arabic?
نعم. أنا سألت أمير المؤمنين أن العلماء في وقته ثاروا عليه، كانوا يحبونه ويؤيدونه كبطل من أبطال الإسلام. أنشأ جماعته وقال أن المأمور وأن المجدد لم يحاربه أحد، ولكن عندما أعلن أنه الإمام المهدي والمسيح الموعود حاربه هؤلاء الناس. على أي حال هو بوصفه الإمام المهدي والمسيح الموعود فلا بد أنه جاء ليصحح أمورا كثيرة كانت شائعة بين المسلمين، في علماء المسلمين والمسلمين في ذلك الوقت. السؤال الآن لأمين، ما هي هذه المعتقدات التي كان المسلمون يؤمنون بها وجاء وصححها وعدل هذه المفاهيم؟ النقطة الأولى تتعلق بموت المسيح ابن مريم ووجوده في السماء ونزوله منها.
See, there is a host of such beliefs, and I'm going to count and you'll see how many there are, which he came to correct, and without that, no man with a true rational understanding could have genuinely believed in Islam, except for those who were born with those views and they never challenged them. But I'm going to explain one after the other. With regards to the understanding of the Quran, with regards to the understanding of God, with regards to the understanding of the Prophet ﷺ and other prophets, with regards to all the fundamentals in Islam, he removed misunderstandings and gave new opening for thought on the rational lines to follow the course of what may happen in future, and to understand the correct meaning. This plus correction of bad habits, unrighteous acts, and superstitious practices in Islam, which had become, or which had been borrowed in fact from the Hindu faith and the Hindu practices of superstitions, which always are a part of the idolatry, which do not really belong to those religions which are monotheists who believe in the oneness of God and Tawheed, the Khalis. So these are the general areas and many more which will come to me gradually. So let me start with about the Quran first. In the Holy Quran, there were many verses, like the ones I mentioned, who were considered to have been annulled and made mansukh by Allah, by some of the verses, and he said no. The Holy Quran is perfect, totally dependable. There is no change wrought by any hand, so forget about that. Neither by God nor by human hand. About many verses which spoke of Hazrat Muhammad Rasul Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which were absolutely misinterpreted by the ulama, and they were disgraceful if taken literally. There he defended the Quran, and that is why we have a concept of Quran through his blessing, which is completely defensible in with regards to the attacks of the Orientalists on the Holy Quran. I'll give example. People, earlier writers have been writing in the Holy Quran about Hazrat Lut, that he offered his own daughters to the enemies. What sort of prophet was he? Are prophets like that? Can you ever believe that? Now, this is a commonly accepted belief even up till today by many ulama. Hazrat Masih Maud strongly protested against all such things and said all prophets of Allah are absolutely innocent. And you have failed to understand the meaning and you start attacking the purity and piety of the very prophets. What would be left of others? According to other ulama, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam spoke 3 lies. Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam rejected this. In principle, he said, whatever you find misinterpreted by the ulama is their responsibility. As far as Masih Maud is concerned, he saw no reflection on the character of any prophets in the Holy Quran. They were pure and innocent. It was a great service. About Hazrat Rasul Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you know what was said? It was said by the ulama, and perhaps even today so many say that once he entered the house of his own cousin who was married to Zaid, and who was also his adopted son. Zaid was his adopted son. And she was not properly dressed or was not in a carefully attired at that time. And ulama speak of other things which I can't even mention. He fell in love. And God saw it, but he was ashamed and he was afraid of the people, not of God. He was afraid of the people, so God told him in the Holy Quran, don't be afraid of the people. I know what is in your heart and what you are hiding. Go ahead and marry her. So that is why that divorced her and the marriage was arranged. It is so absurd, so shocking, so insulting to the very concept of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah that no sane Muslim of today should even entertain the thought. No question of investigation, that is out of question. It is impossible for Rasulullah to have done that. And they couldn't understand the import of that verse. So Hazrat Masih Maud rejected all this nonsense. Said all the prophets of Allah were innocent and pure and they committed no crime. This is, if he had done just one service alone, this service, and died, that should have been sufficient to prove him to be not only a mujaddid but a mujaddid of high order. About angels, you read in the Quran, in the commentaries, they think, the ulama of the previous thought, they had wings like ordinary people, like birds, and not ordinary, like ordinary birds. And they flew from place to place and here to there, and there was one single angel of death running about, all the moment, flying from one place to other. There are not so many seconds in a day as there are deaths in a second. This was his task. And was this the only world, the only place with life? The Holy Quran says no, there are other things. So what sort of angel that was, and what sort of absurd fairy tale they believed in. And flying with wings. You only fly with wings if there is air, there is some space, you push it, and the speed must be very limited. But he is everywhere, it seems. So Hazrat Masih Maud wrote beautiful explanations about the concept of angels. He said they do not have your dimensions as you have. He proved from the Holy Quran that angel Jibril appeared to Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah himself in different forms and different dimensions, sometimes filling the whole horizon, sometimes coming to him as a very powerful, strong man and embracing him like this, sometimes coming like a traveler who appeared before him, nobody knew who it was and where he came from, asking questions and disappearing. And the same Archangel Jibril appeared to Jesus Christ like a dove. Or was it a pigeon? Pigeon perhaps, huh?
Yes.
Pigeon, like a pigeon. Now, what sort of angel that was? Was it his own body? Couldn't be. So Masih said that angels appear to you according to your own concept and understanding, and according to the greatness of the message which they bring. The message brought to Hazrat Muhammad was far more glorious and mighty. So the appearance of angel Jibreel was in accordance with that, great and majestic. And the the message brought to Jesus Christ was that of submission, love, of course, a beautiful message, but a defenseless philosophy. So the birds like doves and pigeons, they are not birds of prey. They are just one-sided sort of birds, which only birds with some qualities, but not with defensive qualities. They are not provided with that mechanism to defend themselves. So this was indicative of what was brought to early Masih, the first Messiah. So he spoke of angels in so many ways and explained that in fact all the laws of nature are run by angels. And the chief of each department, so to say, is mentioned as the chief angel in that area. He said, don't you see that the death faces life at every moment, everywhere in the whole universe? And there are so many ways of approaching death. If we are alive, this is a miracle. But death is trying to strike at us every second, every split second of our life. And the same is the case with all other animals. So there is a regular system of life and death. And the system of death is controlled by the archangel of death, not Jibreel, but the other of Israel. And Hazrat Masih proved it from the Holy Quran. He said, there are junood of angels whom you cannot count. If there are just these three important things and nothing else matters, why should there be hosts of angels who are uncountable? They are working under them. Some control the productive phenomena, the phenomenon of provision of food. So the food chains have regular laws controlling them. Hazrat Masih was informed by Allah, and this is how we came to learn of it. He said these food chains are not running automatically. Each law of God, which is fixed and never changes, requires some energy, spiritual and controlling energy, to keep them on the right path. Remove that energy, the chaos will develop. So this is the meaning of angels. And archangel is the angel of purity and piety. All the human faculties which help a man take the right decisions and act rightly are the phenomena controlled by Jibreel. So he is the spirit of holiness. But under him, each man is provided within him those angels who constantly try to advise him, do this please, this is good. And there is no angel for bad things. So Satan is appointed for that. But to record the right things and bad things, there are two angels, one sitting on the right, one sitting on the left. Not that bodily they are sitting. They are not like human beings. They are powers, forces, spirits. which we cannot fully understand because they belong to different dimensions. You see, for instance, if you take an ant on your hand, in the palm of your hand, and you claim that because I'm carrying this ant and it has eyes, it has ears, it can hear, so she would know that there is something like a man with all these faculties, but not the ant. You're only thinking for himself, for the ant. The ant only knows that something is carrying it, that's all, no more. What is the nature of man is totally beyond. So if an ant is questioned about the existence of man, it has no right to deny. But if the ant is asked, what sort of man you believe in, she will say, no, please forget about it. I have no idea. So if an ant cannot understand a man, both physical beings, how can physical beings understand the spiritual beings, which belong to different realms? So this is what Hazrat Masih Maud told us, and no other ulama. Read the books. Search far and wide in the pre-Islamic, pre-Masih Maud period of Islamic literature, you won't find any such thing. Then he explained about the Day of Judgment, how shall we be raised again. Then he explained about the hell and the heaven, the continuity of soul, in what form. You know, he rejected all the ulama's views, they thought were also based in the Quran. And Masih said, no, I'm going to point out the verses which are going to be decisive on this issue. Your concept of understanding of the Quran is contrary to the Quran and contrary to the understanding of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. For instance, how shall we be raised again? All the ulama till now believe that as you die, so will you be raised. That is why the issue edicts that you must not, according to the Quran and Hadith, donate your eyes after death, because otherwise you'll be raised without eyes. You see? This is their understanding, their height of their flight. They can't fly more than this. Masih Maud came from heaven, so his flight was heavenly. And he told us it's all rubbish and nonsense. They don't understand. Why don't they read the Quran? The Holy Quran says, وَنُنْشِيَكُمْ فِي مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. We will raise you into something which you have no knowledge. So don't you have your knowledge of yourself, that you have one eye or two eyes, or your nose is working or not? And moreover, what about an old man suffering from rheumatism, a one-legged person, a blind man? Would he question, would the Maulvi say, Man huwa fi hazihi ama fahuwa fil akhirati ama? So these blind people who have been memorizing the Quran all their life, they will wake up in the after world, in the hereafter, and they won't be able to see. See, don't be blind. This was the answer of Mr. Don't be blind yourself, or you will be raised blind, not these people. It's a spiritual faculty to see, which the Holy Quran is speaking of. So in this way, I'm just quoting a few examples in this area, but I'll turn to some others later on.
There will be questions, inshallah.
Please.
لقد انطلق أمير المؤمنين في الإجابة على هذا السؤال وذكر أمورا كثيرة أرجو أن أتمكن من ذكرها. يقول حضرته أن الإمام المهدي والمسيح الموعود عليه السلام جاء وصحح أكواما هائلة من المفاهيم التي تتعلق بالله سبحانه وتعالى وبرسله وبملائكته وبكتبه وبالقرآن، وفيما يتعلق بالأخلاق وبأمور كثيرة كانت منتشرة بين الناس، فجاء هو وصحح هذه الأمور التي تأثر المسلمون من الهندوس، وأدخلوا في عباداتهم وأفكارهم أشياء من أفكار الهندوس، وهي ليست من التوحيد وإنما هي من الشرك. وأستطيع أن أقول أن هذا لم يحدث في الهند فقط، ولكن في سائر بلاد المسلمين كانت هناك أشياء دخلت في الإسلام من عقائد أخرى غير الهندوس. على أي حال، أراد حضرته أن يضرب المثل الأول بالقرآن نفسه، فقال إن الذي كان يعتقده العلماء وإلى الآن هناك من يعتقد ذلك، أن هناك آيات كثيرة نسخت من القرآن. فجاء المسيح الموعود وقال لا، ليس في القرآن أي نسخ، الله تعالى لم ينسخ آية من القرآن، ولا يستطيع أحد من البشر أن ينسخ آية أخرى، وكل كلمة وكل حرف في القرآن صحيح ومعمول به إلى يوم القيامة. مثلا هناك آيات تتحدث عن الأنبياء، وهي نتيجة فهم العلماء لها كانت موضع هجوم من المستشرقين، ولكن المسيح الموعود جاء وصححها وأعطى المفهوم الصحيح الذي يجعل الإسلام في حرز لا يستطيع المستشرقون أن يهاجمون. فمثلا في كتب التفسير يتحدثون عن سيدنا لوط وهو نبي من أنبياء الله، يفسرون الآيات المتعلقة به أنه قدم بناته لأعدائه كي يتعاملوا معهم بالطريقة التي يريدونها. يقول هذه أخلاق أنبياء؟ هل هذا يمكن أن ينسب إلى نبي؟ إذا كان الأنبياء بهذا المستوى فكيف يكون سائر الناس؟ لا، إن أنبياء الله كلهم معصومون، عندهم الأخلاق التي تحميهم. هذا الفهم هو فهم خاطئ. لا يهمنا ما يقوله الناس وما يفهمه الناس، إنما يهمنا كرامة الأنبياء وحقيقة الأنبياء والتي اختار هؤلاء الأنبياء. وفند هذا الكلام وبين أن سيدنا لوط لم يفعل مثل هذا العمل المنكر. بالنسبة لسيدنا إبراهيم، هناك في كتب التفسير من يقول أنه كذب 3 مرات. كبير مثل سيدنا إبراهيم يكون
صديقا نبيا.
نعم، صديق. القرآن يصفه بأنه صديقا نبيا. هذا الصديق يكذب 3 مرات. من إذن الصديق إذا كان يكذب 3 مرات؟ بين
من هو ليس بنبي؟ What would happen to him?
إذا كان النبي في مرتبة سيدنا إبراهيم الصديق يسمح له بأن يكذب 3 مرات، فكيف ماذا يسمح للآخرين؟ وبين أن سيدنا إبراهيم لم يكذب ولا مرة، لا هو ولا غيره من الأنبياء. هناك أيضا في كتب التفسير أن سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم عندما دخل بيت زيد الذي كان يتبناه ورأى ابنة عمته وهي كانت زوجته، يقول المفسرون في تفسير وتخشى الناس والله أحق أن تخشاه، أن سيدنا محمد رأى جزءا من جسدها وهي تجلس غير محتشمة تماما لأنها في بيتها، فأحبها ووقعت في قلبه، ولكنه استحى من الناس ولم يستحي من الله، فقال له الله أتستحي من الناس ولا تستحي مني؟ هذا كلام يقال في حق محمد الذي هو على خلق عظيم. كل هذه الأشياء وكثير غيرها موجودة في كتب التفسير وفي عقيدة كثير من العلماء، ولكن سيدنا الإمام المهدي والمسيح الموعود صحح كل هذه المفاهيم. هناك أيضا الملائكة، الناس والعلماء يعتقدون أنها كالطيور تطير بأجنحتها، ويقول أمير المؤمنين كيف يمكن لهذه الملائكة؟ نأخذ مثلا ملاك الموت، هناك آلاف من حالات الموت في كل لحظة تقع على الأرض. لو كان هذا الملاك الذي يقبض الأرواح يطير بجناح، فكيف سيصل إلى هذه وكيف تتم هذه العملية؟ هذا تفكير ساذج. ولقد بين المسيح الموعود من القرآن أن جنود ربك لا يعلم عددها إلا هو، فليست المسألة بهذه البساطة والسذاجة، وإنما لكل مهمة هناك جيش كبير من الملائكة له ملاك رئيس يوجههم، في يشبه ما يجري في هذه الدنيا من وجود مدير عام وجيش من الموظفين والعمال يقومون بهذه الوظائف. ثم بين أن الحديث عن الملائكة ليسوا كالبشر، مقاييس البشرية لا تنطبق على الملائكة، ولا يمكن أن نقول أن لها طول وعرض وأجنحة بهذا المفهوم، وإنما هي القوة المحركة للقوانين التي تحرك وتسير هذا الكون. وقد ضرب أمير المؤمنين مثلا للنملة التي تقف على يد الإنسان. هذه النملة لها أعين ولها إحساس، هل تستطيع هذه النملة أن تعرف من هو الذي يحملها؟ هل تستطيع أن تعرف أوصافه ومثل هذه الأمور؟ تعرف أن هناك من يحملها فقط، ولكنها لا تستطيع أن تصف الإنسان ومواهبه وصفاته. فكيف بالإنسان المادي؟ كيف يستطيع أن يعرف هذه المخلوقات الروحانية ويصفها بهذه الأوصاف المادية التي لا تنطبق على الملائكة؟ وبين أن كل ما يجري في الكون له مجموعة من الملائكة. فمثلا سلسلة الطعام له مجموعة من الملائكة، الموت له مجموعة من الملائكة. كلمة مجموعة يعني أعداد لا يعلمها إلا الله. وأشار أمير المؤمنين إلى أن الملكات الروحانية التي في البشر التي تجعلهم يختارون بين الخير والصواب ومثل هذه الأمور، هذه عمل مجموعة من الملائكة برئاسة الملاك الكبير سيدنا جبريل. أما لا يوجد هناك من الملائكة من يحض على أعمال الشر، وإنما هناك من يقيد ويسجل أعمال الشر وأعمال الخير. أما الذي يحض على الشر فهو الشيطان، أو كما نقول إبليس. إذن الملائكة هي القوى التي تحرك كل القوانين التي تتحكم في الكون. ثم تحدث عن يوم القيامة وقال إن العلماء يتصورون أننا سنقوم من القبور بأجسامنا هذه، فكيف يكون الذي يكون بدون قدم أو بدون ذراع يقوم هكذا، والأعمى الذي يموت وهو أعمى يقوم أعمى بهذه الطريقة؟ لقد قال لهم المسيح الموعود: أنتم الذين إذا أصررتم على هذه الأفكار ستبعثون عمي، أما هذا الذي قضى حياته في الصلاح والتقوى وقراءة القرآن فلن يبعث أعمى. أنتم تأخذون بظاهر الألفاظ ولا تفهمون المعنى الحقيقي الذي هذه الأمور. ثم تحدث عن يوم القيامة والسماء والأرض واستمرار الروح وأمور كثيرة. إن شاء الله نعدكم بأن نجعلها موضوعا لأسئلتنا نسأل فيها أمير المؤمنين وهو يجيبنا عليه. إنما نعرف الآن أن المسيح الموعود أجاب على كل هذه الأسئلة وصح كل هذه المفاهيم، بحيث أن المسلم الآن يجلس مطمئنا إلى أن كتابه ودينه لا يقول إلا ما هو حقيقي وما هو معقول وما لا يستطيع أحد أن يهاجمه.
One other thing I want to add about the Zayd issue, very important. The Holy Quran rejects that concept completely and totally. That it was the love of Muhammad Rasulullah for that lady which initiated all this. It was exactly the opposite. According to the Holy Quran, Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah said to Zayd,
I'm
going to read this. وَإِذْ تَقُولُ لِلَّذِي أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَأَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِ أَمْسِكْ عَلَيْكَ زَوْجَكَ وَاتَّقِ اللَّهَ. Now he is saying to him, don't divorce her, fear Allah and keep it for yourself. If he had thought of marrying her because he had seen her in some pose, how could he do this? He should have said the other way around. So whatever these Maulvis have built as understanding of this is absolutely wrong. The Holy Quran doesn't accept it. What was Hazrat Muhammad afraid of? He was afraid not as against Allah, but this is what I believe is a genuine understanding of this verse. He was afraid that he was responsible for this marriage to Zayd. He had done it, he had asked her, his own family member who belonged to an honorable Arab family. Marriage of an honorable woman of an Arab family with a slave was considered to be a great insult in those days. So she went to that extent of sacrifice for the sake of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, that being his cousin, he accepted, okay, Ya Rasulullah, if you say, I'll do that. Now, Zayd had decided ultimately that he couldn't live with her anymore, for some reasons. That is why he went to him and said, for fear Allah, try to retain her. I'm responsible for this. Now he was afraid that if this divorce took place, then people will say, look here, Muhammad Rasulullah made a wrong decision and he, in a manner of speaking, injured the feeling of the whole family by first advising her to marry this slave of his, and secondly, it came to nothing. Ultimately, she had to see herself divorced. So this was the fear, and for that he might have contemplated as a sacrifice. All right, if that happens, then I'll marry her, so that she doesn't suffer from being obedient to me. Now, this is a very noble thought. But when he might have thought of this, he could have thought of other talks. People might have said, he is mutabanna. He is his own so-called son. So he is marrying the divorced wife of his own son. So these were the fears and dilemma which Muhammad Rasulullah was facing. There was no desire on his part to marry her for his own personal sense of pleasure in any way. If it had been, he wouldn't have started by telling Zayd not to divorce. And imagine, Zayd, who was so obedient to him, so loving, that he refused to return with his parents, leaving Muhammad Rasulullah when he was offered complete freedom by Muhammad Rasulullah. Yet he did not accept this advice, which means there must have been things which had gone to an extent where Zayd thought that he will not be able to keep his taqwa intact if he had remained with this lady anymore, and he might have transgressed against her in any manner which would hurt the feeling of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. So again, as I know Zayd from the traditions and solid reports, it must have been his love of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah which compelled him to reject this advice. You know, put yourself in his frame. He would say, if I accept Rasulullah's advice, which I would very much love to, and I can't tolerate certain situations, and I may burst into a frenzy or some outrage, and that would hurt Muhammad Rasulullah more than this. And this was the lady whom Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah decided to marry for the sake of that decision of his, that she accepted his advice and offered this great sacrifice. If he does this, the talk of the town would be, that he marries the wife of his own adopted son. If he doesn't do that, then the talk of the town would be, look at Muhammad Rasulullah, his advice has gone in vain. So this was the fear. Allah said, I am going to decide. Don't fear what people say. It was not fear as against Allah. Allah said, you do it exactly according to taqwa. Fear Allah here means, don't take care of what people may say, don't bring it into your mental computation at all. Just act as you think. Fear of Allah requires you. And obvious answer was that he should have married her. So this marriage took place. And there is no sign anywhere after the marriage that she became a naturally beloved wife. She was quite advanced in age at that time. And she was being divorced for some reason. Something must have been in her habits which Zayd could not tolerate anymore, I mean. So he accepted her with all those possible dangers of some defect or something. This is Muhammad Rasulullah, greatest of all prophets. Look at the ulama. Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam. came and enlightened us about all these things. He said of all the prophets, Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the chastest and the most pious. And he couldn't have even cultivated a thought of sin in any form. Right?
Just I want to ask.
Some
of the ulama says, وَاتَّقِ اللَّهَ is said not to Zayd, but to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
This is absolutely wrong. No. It is Muhammad Rasulullah saying it to Zayd.
Yes, this is the way they think about the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah is saying, وَاتَّقِ اللَّهَ, don't be like this.
Muhammad Rasulullah sallam is saying this to, look at this, it's impossible to translate it otherwise. وَإِذْ تَقُولُ لِلَّذِي أَنَّمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَأَنَّمْتَ عَلَيْهِ أَمْسِكْ عَلَيْكَ زَوْجَكَ وَاتَّقِ اللَّهَ. One sentence continues.
Finished.
Then comes وَتُخْفِي فِي نَفْسِكَ مَا اللَّهُ مُبْدِيهِ وَتَخْشَى النَّاسِ. You're afraid, if I do this, this would happen, if I do this, that would happen. On either side, people will censure me. So clear. And this, you have rightly pointed out, I can't understand what's happening inside their minds.
They are thinking of the
attribute ittaqi from Allah to Muhammad Rasulullah. Why don't you fear Allah? While Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah was atqan nas. He said, once speaking of taqwa, he said, taqwa is here, taqwa is here, taqwa is here. Now, whoever is the leader of taqwa, these ulama said, he lacks taqwa on that occasion. That who is presented by Allah as the symbol of truth, they say the symbol of truth lied here and there. What would be left of other prophets and what would be left of ordinary people? The whole world will be filled with vermins and wicked people if this is our model of prophethood, our concept of the model prophethood.
Another point, is it possible that Hadrat Zainab was treating him not in a very respectful way because he...
Could be, but I doubt this. Because you know how long they remained as married couple?
Not too much.
No, it was not too short either.
Yes.
I can't believe this of Zainab because if she had this aversion to just being married to a slave or to Zaid, she had known her all her life. And she should have refused at the time when Muhammad ﷺ suggested this. So I don't think she did that. I think she was brought up with certain views and ideas and habits, and Zaid had a different way of life. So this could have created some frictions. Sometimes even small, manner of behavior results into divorces.
Yes.
Short, small things. Yes. Hazrat Muhammad ﷺ once was approached by a married Muslim lady who requested him to have her divorced from her husband. Hazrat Muhammad ﷺ inquired from her, why? Does he treat you harshly? She said, no, not at all. Does he give you any sort of problem regarding money and housekeeping and this and that? She said, no. Inquiring of this and that, the ultimate answer he received was, look here. No, not he said, look, he said, O Rasulullah, he is an excellent man, thorough gentleman. I have nothing against him. But I don't like him. I can't help it. Nothing is aroused in me to be his wife. So said, enough reason, okay. So, such small reasons could result into breaking of marriages, and they were acceptable to Hazrat Muhammad ﷺ. So why to attribute anything wrong to either of the two? I wouldn't. I shouldn't like to do that. Let's say, whatever it was, There was a clash of personality.
Yes.
It couldn't be
They
tolerated.
couldn't make it together. Yeah.
And both being pious, why shouldn't we attribute better things to them?
Yes. But,
The Holy Quran has told us that you should have rejected the evil things said of your own people. You know them, they are good people. You should have thought of good things. Husn Zan is important. So about Hazrat Zaid, I believe this was his psychology. He said, we just don't go together. I may lose my temper one day and say things to her which will hurt her and hurt Hazrat Muhammad as well, because this is the marriage of his making. And things like that. So let's think of good things. This is what Masih Maud has told us. Don't think of bad things about any of the previous pious people, be they prophets or their companions.
يوضح أمير المؤمنين المسألة المتعلقة بالسيدة زينب بأنهم أثاروا هذه القضية عندما قالوا أن حب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم للسيدة زينب هو الذي أثار هذه المسألة، ولكن الآية القرآنية تدل على عكس ذلك. الآية تقول أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عندما وجد رغبة في زيد ليطلق السيدة زينب ذهب إليه وقال له: أمسك عليك زوجك واتق الله. هذا أمر من النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أن يحاول مرة أخرى أن يتمسك بزوجته وأن يتقي الله في معاملته لها وأن يحافظ على هذه الأسرة. الدافع وراء ذلك أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم هو بنفسه الذي زوج السيدة زينب من ابنه الذي كان متبنى زيد، وهذا الزواج في ذلك الوقت يعتبر حمل ثقيل على السيدة زينب لأنه كان عبدا وهي سيدة من أشراف قريش، فعندما ترضى وتقبل لتتزوج مثل هذا الرجل في ذلك الوقت هذه تضحية عظيمة، ولكنها قامت بها طاعة للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. كما أن زيدا كان حبيبا للنبي لأنه كان متبنيه، وعندما جاء أبوه الأصلي الحقيقي وجاء ليسترده رفض أن يذهب مع أبيه وعمه وبقي مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، ولذلك تبناه النبي، فهو كان أيضا تقيا صالحا مخلصا. إذن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بريء من أن ينظر نظرة فيها أي عيب إلى هذه التي كانت تحت يده والتي زوجها بنفسه إلى هذا الغلام في ذلك الوقت. ومع ذلك مع طاعة وحب زيد ابن حارثة للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فإنه لم يستطع أن ينفذ هذا الأمر النبوي وهذه النصيحة، أيضا حرصا على علاقته بالنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، لأنه إذا فشل إذا بقي معها ولم يطلقها فربما يزداد الضغط عليه فيسيء معاملتها، وفي هذا ما يغضب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أو يسيء إلى مشاعره، فهو فضل أن يطلقها حتى ينفصل هي على صلاحها وهو على صلاحه وتقواه، وهذه الحياة لم تصلح لهما هما الاثنين معا كما يمكن لأي زوجين صالحين ألا يتفقا في أمور الحياة. وقد ضرب أمير المؤمنين مثلا لذلك في سيدة ذهبت إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وسألته أن تطلق من زوجها، فسألها: هل هو رجل غير صالح؟ قالت: لا، كله صلاح وتقوى. هل هو يقتر عليك في الإنفاق؟ قالت: لا، كل شيء فيه جيد، ليس فيه أي عيب أستطيع أن أعيبه عليه، غير أني لا أحبه. فاكتفى الرسول بهذا وفرق بينهما. هذا يدل على أنه من الممكن أن امرأة صالحة ورجل صالح لا يستطيعان الحياة معا ويمكن أن ينفصلا. وقد سألت أمير المؤمنين ربما تكون هذه السيدة الفاضلة أساءت معاملته، فقال: أنا أستبعد هذا، وضرب لنا هذا المثل أنها صالحة مؤدبة لا تسيء إلى زوجها، وهو رجل صالح لا يسيء إلى زوجته، ولكن لم يستطيع أن يستمر في حياة لاختلاف في الطباع لمثل هذه الأمور التي لا تسير معها الحياة. إذن تم الطلاق. مثل هذه السيدة التي أجبرها النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أو نقول أمرها أن تتزوج فرضيت بهذا القرار من النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، إذا طلقت فلا بد هو أن يجبر هذا الكسر. إذا لم تفلح حياتها مع هذا الرجل، إذن يتزوجها النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. ولكن كان يحمل هما لذلك. الهم هو فشل هذه الزوجة. الهم الثاني أن الناس ربما تتحدث عن أنه تزوج من زوجة المتبنى له. والنقطة الأهم من كل ذلك أنه قد يقال أنه أساء الاختيار عندما زوج هذه السيدة بهذا الرجل، فلم تنجح هذا الزواج. هذه كلها أمور حاكت في صدر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، وأراد بسببها أن يؤجل هذا الطلاق. ولكن الله سبحانه وتعالى قال له لا تنظر إلى الناس، انظر إلى ما نأمرك نحن به، وأقدم على هذا وتزوجها، لأن هذه مسألة تخص الإسلام وتخص التشريع فيما بعد ذلك. هذا ما وضحه لنا الإمام المهدي والمسيح الموعود، بينما هؤلاء المسلمون العلماء ينسبون إلى النبي أمور لا تنسب، لا يرضى بها الإنسان العادي أن يوصم بأنه ينظر إلى امرأة فخلسة فتقع في قلبه، ومثل هذه الأشياء التي يستحي الإنسان أن ينسبها إلى غيره وليس إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. أشار أمير المؤمنين أيضا إلى أنه لماذا لا نعتقد بأن السيدة زينب أساءت معاملة سيدنا زيد؟ قال لأن النبي أمرنا بأن نحسن الظن بالناس، هؤلاء قوم صالحين لا يمكن أن يرتكب مثل هذه الأمور التي تخالف تعاليم الإسلام. أما عدم التوفيق بين الشخصين فهذا شيء عادي يحدث بين الناس جميعا.
No, I said the angels don't have wings. Didn't I say that?
Yes, sir.
But the time seems to have wings. It has flown so fast. He tells me it's over. So inshallah we'll meet again.
Inshallah.
Tomorrow?
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.